Let's talk about something nobody wants to admit. Sex after 50 is different, dramatically different. And if you are a man over 50 and you've noticed that you don't care about sex the way you used to, you are not broken, you are not dying, you are not less of a man, you are normal. But nobody tells you that. Society still expects you to be as sexually driven at 55 or 60 as you were at 25. And when you are not, you feel like something's wrong with you. Today, I am going to tell you the truth about sex after 50, the biological reality, the relationship dynamics, the liberation that comes with caring less, and why you might be happier without it than you ever were chasing it. Let's start with biology, because this is where most men feel shame when they shouldn't. Testosterone declines as you age. That is medical fact. Starting around age 30, men lose about 1% of their testosterone per year. By 50, you've lost 20%. By 60, 30%. Testosterone directly affects libido, not just performance, desire, interest, drive. When your testosterone drops, you simply don't think about sex as much. And here is what nobody tells you. That is not a problem. That is biology doing exactly what it is designed to do. At 25, your biology wants you reproducing. High testosterone drives sexual pursuit. At 55, your biology doesn't care about reproduction anymore, so the drive decreases. That doesn't make you less masculine, it makes you human, but society doesn't acknowledge this. You are still expected to perform like a younger man. Women still expect it. Dating culture emphasizes physical chemistry, and if you are not interested or can't perform the way you used to, you feel inadequate. But most men over 50 are dealing with the same thing. They just don't talk about it. Now, let's talk about what happens when you do try to have sex after 50. First, performance. Erectile dysfunction is common. Medications, diabetes, heart issues, prostate problems all affect function. Even if you can perform, it is often not spontaneous anymore. You might need medication, more time, specific circumstances. Sex at 25 is spontaneous and energetic. Sex at 55 often requires planning and medication. That is not romantic. That is work. Second, there is the effort versus reward calculation. Sex takes energy, physical and emotional. At 50 or 60, your energy is limited. For many men, honestly evaluating that equation leads to a surprising conclusion. The effort required isn't worth the reward. The reward is temporary. The effort is significant. There are other ways to feel satisfied that don't require that investment. Third, relationship dynamics. If you are dating women over 50, some have higher sex drives than men the same age. They want sexual validation, proof they're still attractive. They expect you to provide that. But you might not be interested or capable at that level. That creates tension. She feels rejected, you feel pressured. Neither is wrong. You are on different biological timelines. Other women use sex as leverage. They withhold or grant it based on your behavior, generosity, compliance. Sex becomes transactional, a tool for control. Once you realize that, sex stops being about connection and becomes about power. Here is the reality many men over 50 discover and don't talk about. They're relieved to care less about sex. For decades, sexual desire drove decisions. Who you dated, how you spent money, how much nonsense you tolerated from women. Men do stupid things for sex, tolerate bad relationships for sex, ignore red flags for sex, compromise standards for sex. But when testosterone drops and desire fades, suddenly you can think clearly. You can evaluate women based on who they actually are, not how attracted you are to them. You can make decisions based on what serves you, not what biology pushes you toward. That clarity is freedom. When you are driven by sexual desire, you tolerate things you shouldn't. A woman who is difficult, demanding, dramatic, but sexually available. You stay, you rationalize. You overlook problems because the sexual reward justifies the cost. But when you care less about sex, that equation collapses. She is still difficult, demanding, dramatic, but now there is no reward compensating. So you leave or never get involved. Sexual desire creates tolerance for dysfunction. When that desire fades, your standards increase dramatically. You are no longer willing to trade peace for sex. Men over 50 have told me privately they're happier without sex than they ever were chasing it. Not because sex was bad, but because the pursuit, the effort to maintain sexual relationships, the compromise required to keep sexual access, all of that was exhausting. Now that they don't care as much, they have energy for other things. Hobbies, projects, friendships, solitude, purpose. Things that bring consistent, lasting satisfaction instead of temporary pleasure, followed by complicated dynamics. They're not less masculine, they're differently masculine. Masculinity at 55 isn't about sexual conquest. It is about competence, integrity, self-respect and peace. If you are 50 or 60 with a healthy sex drive and sex is good and uncomplicated, that is great. But that is not most men's experience. Most experience declining interest, performance issues, complicated dynamics, and the realization that sex isn't worth what it costs. Those men need to hear they're not broken, that it is okay to care less, that there is freedom in not being driven by sexual desire, that you can have a good, meaningful, satisfying life without sex being a priority. Here is what changes when you accept this. You stop pursuing women out of sexual interest. You only pursue women if they genuinely add value beyond sexual access. You stop tolerating bad behavior because you are not motivated by sexual reward. You start evaluating relationships based on compatibility, shared values, mutual respect, not physical attraction. You redirect energy toward things that bring deeper satisfaction, and you stop feeling inadequate when you are not interested in sex. When you stop pursuing sex, women notice, and for some, that is threatening. They're used to having sexual power over men, but when you genuinely don't care, when you are evaluating her based on what she actually brings to your life, she loses that power. She either has to offer something real, genuine value beyond sexual access, or she has nothing. That filters out a lot of women quickly. Only women with substance, character, compatibility become interesting. Ironically, that is when you might find a relationship worth having, not when you were desperate for sex, but when you stopped caring about it. On the medical side, if you are experiencing sexual changes, talk to a doctor. There are medical conditions that cause these symptoms. Low testosterone can be treated, but understand that some decline is normal. Don't pathologize normal aging. The medical industry has a financial interest in convincing you that normal aging is a disease needing expensive treatment. Some men need treatment, but many are being sold solutions to problems they don't have. What about intimacy and connection? Sex can provide those, but it often doesn't, especially in modern dating over 50. The emotional connection you are looking for doesn't come from sex. It comes from vulnerability, shared experience, genuine conversation, mutual respect. You can have all those without sex. Deep friendships provide connection, purpose provides meaning, solitude provides peace. Sex is one possible source of intimacy. It is not the only source, and for many men over 50, it is not even the best source. Here is the bottom line. Sex after 50 is fundamentally different. Your biology is different. Your priorities are different. The relationship dynamics are different. And for many men, sex isn't worth what it costs anymore. Not because sex is bad, but because the pursuit, the performance pressure, the complications, the energy expenditure all outweigh the temporary pleasure. And that is okay. You are not broken. You are not less of a man. You are adapting to biological reality and making choices that serve your well-being. If your sex drive is declining, you are normal. If you are relieved to care less, you are not alone. If you are choosing peace over sexual pursuit, you are making a valid choice. If you are building a life where sex isn't a priority and you are happier for it, you are ahead of most men still chasing something their biology doesn't even want. The truth about sex after 50 is this. It is optional, it is complicated, it is often not worth the effort, and caring less about it might be one of the most freeing experiences of your life. Subscribe to this channel right now for truths about life after 50. Nobody else will say, hit that like button. Comment honestly about your experience. Share this with the man who is feeling inadequate because his sex drive isn't what it was. Sex after 50 changes. How you respond determines whether you spend your 50s and 60s feeling inadequate or accepting reality and building a life around what actually satisfies you now. You are not broken. You are free. Subscribe, like, comment, share,